we put the spotlight yet again tonight at 8 p.m. edition of the Urban Debate on pollution and pollution in the NCR region in North India, specifically in the national capital, and why is it happening? Tonight, we're going to talk about what happened in the top court. We're going to talk about what is it that the governments haven't done, need to do, and why is it that repeatedly, despite the Supreme Court's multiple interventions, this case isn't getting resolved. Let me tell you, the Supreme Court had very, very harsh comments to make for the Delhi government as well as the centre and other states. While hearing this matter, the frustration of the top court extremely apparent in terms of nothing changing, nothing improving when it comes to the state of pollution in the national capital. So the Supreme Court actually went on to give a 24-hour ultimatum. And as they did so, here are the key things that they said. The Supreme Court observed that even now, the sources of pollution have not been identified properly. The Supreme Court threatened that we may set up a task force to monitor the implementation of the directions. Such is the state of affairs that the court is now being forced to threaten that we will set up a committee only to look at the work that you are doing and whether or not you're doing what we're telling you to do. They went on to highlight that the Commission has not been given the statute powers to enforce the directions that are being given, that the Supreme Court expects a serious, real action, and that if the Delhi government cannot do so, then the Supreme Court will. We are giving you 24 hours. Implement measures, take measures to control industrial vehicular pollution. Those were some of the comments made by the top court today. That is one aspect, and I'm going to talk about it in detail in just a bit. The other was specifically to do with our children and the fact that in Delhi, the government recently decided to reopen schools, even though pollution continues to be a problem because it wasn't as bad as it was in the Diwali week. The government decided to reopen schools, and the Supreme Court was not very happy with it. So the Supreme Court actually said, you said that the schools were closed, but the schools are open. Small children are having to go in the morning in this fog. There is no respect. You are saying that elders will stay at home, government officials will work from home, but children have to go to school? You say whoever wants to come to school can come or stay home. If you're giving an option, everybody will want to come. Who wants to stay at home? Some very interesting comments made there when this issue was being discussed. Clearly an issue that hit home for the judges as well. The judges commented saying, we also have children, grandchildren. You have to take a call. Don't tell us that we have to take a call. In the end of it, though, the decision was taken as per what the Supreme Court was indicating. So there are two large aspects. The first one is, can the states come together in the next 24 hours or even 48 hours to discuss and curb the sources of pollution for the national capital? And the second aspect that we will debate is about schools, to open, to not open. If for so long they have been in a work from or study from home system, then should we push our children out in Delhi in this pollution for the next few weeks, or should we let it be? We're going to debate that as well. Let me say good evening to the panelists who are joining us right now. Anuja Kapur of the BJP, Aadil Singh Boparai of the Congress Party, Nitin Tyagi of the Aam Aadmi Party, Kailash Vasde, Senior Advocate with the Supreme Court, Karthik Ganesan, Fellow and Director for Research Coordination for Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Thank you all for joining me this evening. I actually want to start off with the Aam Aadmi Party. At the end of the day, a lot of the answering will have to be done by them. So, Mr. Nitin Tyagi, do you think now the governments and all the states surrounding Delhi can get together in 24 hours and have a convincing answer for the Supreme Court?
Actually, I feel it is extremely important that all the parties or all the governments that are there in the nearby states, in Delhi, NCR, who are involved, all the major stakeholders should come together on the table and find a solution together. We have been requesting and we have been expecting and we have been praying for cooperation from all the states, including the center, Haryana government, Rajasthan government, UP government, from a very long time. And we are trying. If all of us can sit on a table and find a solution to it, otherwise it cannot happen. Delhi can never find a standalone solution for Delhi's pollution because we have other states also to look forward to. If in case we are stopping, the industrial pollution in Delhi, the nearby states also have to do that in case Delhi has to benefit from it. If in case we are shutting down the coal power plants, if in case they are running in the nearby states, then the benefit does not come. So all of us have to work together, act together, and find a level playing field for all of us, where we all of us can act together, look as one, and then work towards the betterment of all.
Okay. Adil, can this happen? Because at the end of the day, what happens in Punjab, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan essentially also impacts what is happening in the national capital. And that's one of the key reasons why we've not been able to solve Delhi's problem. I mean, repeatedly the court kept asking, if you are saying we've taken steps, why is the pollution not going down? If you're saying you've done X, Y, Z, why is it that the pollution is still so high? And at the end of the day, it is because the neighboring states aren't acting enough.
Well, Tanvi, I have a preliminary point to make. Firstly, the citizenry today is extremely disappointed and distressed at the apathy and the inefficiency which is being demonstrated by the central government and the Delhi government. Please understand, it is all very well for certain stakeholders and certain parties to blame the farmers, but a scientific analysis has come forward which very categorically tells us that the major sources of pollution is vehicular emission and industrial emission. In fact, it fell from the Supreme Court in the course of their hearing that these are the two areas which the central government and the Delhi government needs to. And I repeat for the benefit of your viewers, it is vehicular emission and industrial emission. As far as your question is concerned, absolutely. I think all stakeholders, all state governments must come together. There has to be a national task force. There has to be a detailed mechanism, a plan to combat this, because this affects everybody. I mean, it is not party affiliated or leader affiliated. It affects all of us. And I think it's incumbent. The national capital must have better air. Delhi today is virtually a gas chamber. But the problem, Tanvi, which we face year after year is that the Delhi government and the central government is more keen on propaganda, is more keen on hoardings, is more keen on advertisements, and the real issues are not being addressed. Vehicular emission, industrial emission, construction dust, construction which is happening during this time span, there has to be a way to address these problems. We have to go to the root cause of these problems and find a plan which holds us in good stead. It is not just that, at the last moment when the Supreme Court comes down heavily on the central government, that these people wake up. There has to be a consistent, a durable plan, a durable vision to deal with this problem. And perhaps best practices from other parts of the world need to be adopted.
And obviously the accountability is across the board. But every time these issues about vehicular and industrial pollution are raised, and let's keep stubble burning aside for just a bit, although it's not an aspect that can be ignored, of course. But Anuja Kapur, the argument from the Aam Aadmi Party and the Delhi government side every time is that we can stop the industries and we can curb on old vehicles in the national capital. But what about the vehicles that are entering from Haryana and Uttar Pradesh? What about the industries that are actually functioning in Haryana and Uttar Pradesh?
So what Centre has already been doing is I think you must be knowing that the diesel vehicles from Eastern and Western Express highways have already been, been diverted. So the first step is already been taken, and it is not from today. It is already from 4 or 5 years back. I think yesterday I was already there in the conclave, and Bhupendra Yadav ji was there. And I think you clearly know who is he. He's a union minister. So what he has clearly put out things that we are already doing, not only on the areas of curbing. Nitin Gadkari was also been there. So we are talking about, the fuel curbing, and we have already done CNG. We are already bringing up the another, diluted fuel. We are trying to bring it up. We are trying to do electricity. So electric vehicles, we are trying to do that. Now, everything is not going to come in one night stand, it will just come up. So what is happening is that the center has already given the affidavit to the Supreme Court. And they have already told that we have already, shut down Badarpur coal plant in 2018. We have already closed it down. Now, Delhi NCR, for them, we have already, brought up an authority, which is the Central Pollution Control Authority. We have already made it. And it has given, you will not believe, Tanvi, that we have given 52 directions. We have been talking to them, 52 directions on air pollution. We have been telling them. But they, what is happening is that, of course, we all have to come together. Definitely, there cannot be any politics in this. So that is what even Supreme Court is saying. And we are also saying that we all have to come together. Why we have put this authority? So that the NCR can also work with Delhi, so that things can come up. Because now nobody can say anything to anyone. Now we are also putting it forward. That there is, what we call as parali. I think this is the, when we think about air pollution, is when there is parali we see around. And what Delhi government does is they keep on pinpointing. I have been sitting yesterday. Mr. Kejriwal was also there. And he was clearly speaking in his own manner. And we were just thinking on this matter that why every time parali comes up in. Center has already been bringing up stuff. We already brought biocompass, biodecompose, biofuel. This time to help the farmers, we have also bought 3,000 tons of parali. The problem is, yes, the transport. So maybe, this 6 months we have started doing this. The tender has been already passed. And the tender was passed to pick up, 3,000 NTPC have passed this tender. And the rate was also
doing
very
its
low
bit
related to this.
You are saying the centre is doing its bit. It's actually the Delhi government that keeps putting the blame on stubble burning. And that's where the problem really lies, when they don't do enough of this. I have two experts to go across to, but quickly, Nitin Tyagi, please do respond, and then I go to my experts.
Yeah, actually, I did not want to bring up parali right now, because right now we all should actually be seen working towards a better solution. But now that Anuja ji has already picked up parali, so let me just ask one question. What has actually centre done about curbing the parali, any pollution that happens through parali? I did not want to bring up parali because, okay, it has been in focus since the starting of October. But right now that you have picked it up, Centre has done absolutely nothing when it comes to what should be done. What should be done? Just a moment, madam. Let me ask. Anuja ji.
Because you're asking for Centre.
Be quiet.
I have to put this thing forward to you.
Let me complete my question.
Who has bought 3,000 ton of parali on tenders? Have you bought it? It was NTPC. Who is the NTPC? No, we have done it. We have been doing it for 6 months. We have been doing it. We will do it in future.
So here is the point. So here is okay. Calm down, please. Calm down. I think Nitin, she did. Anuja Kapur for the BJP did list out a few of the steps that they have taken on their behalf. Obviously, it's not enough, because stubble burning continues unabated across states.
Even after purchasing 3,000 tons, the number of parali burning instances this year were the highest in last 5 years.
Yeah.
You are just giving us statistics.
It is not only about this time of the year. It was not only about this. Please look into
So wait, hang on a minute. We're going to come back to stubble in just a bit. Tonight, I genuinely want to talk a lot more about the two other issues that do not get discussed: vehicular pollution and industrial pollution. And there is quite a bit of confusion on what is the extent of contribution of these two, Karthik, towards the pollution for Delhi. It really depends on which report I'm going to be reading. If I'm reading the Terry report, it may be different from what the centre's affidavit says, and different from what the IIT Kanpur report tells me. Well, is that where the problem actually starts from? We don't know the extent of the contribution of these sources.
I think on transport, they don't vary very significantly, Tanvi. I think, in the ballpark of 20 to 25% coming from transport, I think is what, both studies probably would be saying. Obviously, there was some misinterpretation on other sources coming from the outside. And, and the solution for transport is not going to happen by imposing lockdowns, right? Or restricting movements of specific categories of vehicles and then and there, right? There has to be significant planning. As I've said, on your show before, right? This has to be addressed year round by ensuring that people are not using private vehicles in the manner that they are in the city state of Delhi, right? And basically using private vehicles to commute all the way from whether it's Noida, Gurgaon, coming into Delhi, right? And it's impossible to, control that just over the weekend, or over a short period, right? This has to be augmented. Public transport has to be augmented, and you have to basically ensure that you're penalizing the use of private vehicles. That is a measure that, unfortunately, I think nobody's got the ability to implement, as much as I think it is a fairly straightforward implementation, right? We all admire what London, for instance, has done. That's the case study that everybody talks about, right? Why can't we do that, right? And in industries, right? The industry, again, contribution, like, it's probably another 20% or so. It's fairly high, right? If you look at the DSS today from IITM, it says that a lot of the stuff is actually coming from the outside as well. And this is not just, handpicked one or two industries. This is industries across the Indo-Gangetic plain. They're all contributing to it, right? Whether it's industries in Punjab or neighboring Faridabad or in Western UP, right? Or even in the outskirts of Delhi. We're looking at about a 20% contribution from them. Now, which of these states, right, has a sense of which of these industrial units is actually compliant, right? How much of that information is available publicly? Are they able to actually go after them and ensure that they're all meeting compliant? And can that happen in 24 hours? Absolutely not. So you have to have year-round monitoring, year-round ability to basically, ensure that sitting in a control room, you're able to sort of, issue guidance regarding, switching on or switching off the manufacturing process. But none of that exists. It all is dependent on an archaic, physical verification, no trust on the remote monitoring process. So unless we really overhaul that, right, these two big sources, which is about 40% of, pollution load in Delhi, give or take, across the year, will not be addressed. And of course, as I said, the remaining is just enough. With the meteorology being adverse, we'll basically go into very poor, severe category at the drop of a hat, because that's what nature can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this 24 hours ultimatum is possibly just, another attempt, a desperate attempt to push the governments to at least start talking to each other. Like you rightly pointed out, obviously there can't be overnight solutions to problems which need attention through the year. And the courts, this time around, the Supreme Court has constantly looked at immediate solutions, which is also where the governments seem to be failing. Immediate solutions will be to lock up everybody at home, to stop all vehicular movement, to take away all of this stubble, which is obviously not possible. What can the court then do, Mr. Kailash Vasde? Much of their frustration apparent every time this hearing takes place, and not just this year after year, across the courts. Is there something that they can actually change?
Good evening. The courts have tried to change. In your program, we have representatives of three parties, the Congress, the AAP, and the BJP. Publicly, they don't agree. How do you want them to agree privately? AAP blames Punjab, the Congress blames the BJP. So interdiction, intimidation, and the terrible backlash between the parties and the political persons who work from election to election will never come about to a national level. Karthik has just given you figures. 25% comes from vehicular pollution, between 15 and 20 from industrial pollution. That takes you 40%. 60% is self-generated pollution from Delhi. Look at the road dust. Look at the terrible situation which emanates with 0.25 and 2.5 microns of dust, which affects everybody, the overhang pollutions. Now, since 2015, I've been doing the cases in the Delhi High Court with regard to pollution. Affidavits were filed by Punjab, Haryana, Rajasthan on the issue of stubble burning. As long as the court was trying to get things done, the states were trying to do things, but nothing actually happened. The NCR Act has been put into the back burner. So therefore, nothing is happening. We are investing thousands of crores every year on paper into controlling pollution. Nothing is happening. Money is going down the drain. We are washing the river. Can you believe you're washing the Yamuna to remove pollution? You're putting water into the river to clean it up. I mean, how absurd can we get? Now look at it differently. See the impact on children. Look at the horrible situation they've been through, with the COVID and with the pollution. We are killing more children in our cities than the world kills because of pollution. These are studies and reports. There are reports from AIMS, there are reports from the Patel Chest Institute, there are WHO reports. Have we no respect for the future progeny of our nations, excepting for bickering between political parties to have their own purposes from election to election? Have we lost the certain sense of responsibility to the citizens of this country? I mean, that is one part of it. Second, look at the amount of money we invest into pollution. We invest into pollution by burning things to encourage pollution so that the other state suffers. And we say, look, it's not our doing. Third, in the whole working over here, I mean, I'm in the Supreme Court, we work in the courts. Even our courts have been shut now for 2 years. Other institutions were going back to work, but there is a fear in the courts that we cannot be able to work. But that is COVID related, not pollution related. Here, pollution is becoming a sing-song for the purposes of not doing what you're supposed to do. In 2009, the CAG reported that 952 crores had been spent on cleaning the Yamuna. Triple the figure today. Nothing has happened. The river is as dirty as it was, if not worse. Insofar as cleaning of Delhi is concerned and stopping construction during this period and regulating the dust, nothing has happened. 16 machines were purchased, the Mercedes-Benz trucks, for the purpose of removing dust. They travel for a short while in the NDMC areas, nothing happens in other parts of the city. Look at the number of trees which are being cut. Metro specializes in it. PWD supports it. And now the NHAI is seeking permission to cut a couple of more thousand trees in the city. It is a city which is gasping for air, relying on trees for the purposes of getting pure oxygen coming into the system and for controlling the carbon. But no, our committees constituted under acts give permission to fell trees which are more than 100 years old. And then we plant green shrubs and say, now we have increased our green cover in the city. Forest doesn't matter.
Right.
So the whole situation is we are moving towards a pandemic of a very different nature. Our futures are coming to an end, especially for the children who can't go to school. And they are the ones who are victims of politics. And they are the victims of people who are not interested in looking at the future of themselves only for the purposes of saying, if I control the school children, I control their parents.
Yeah.
So that is the attitude which is there. Please let the politicians wake up to the fact that pollution has got to be done on a scientific basis. Whatever the politicians may say, Eastern Expressway, Western Expressway, this way, that way, but there is no serious intent to work cohesively under the NCR Act for the purposes of regulating pollution in the city, which is becoming a gas chamber.
Which has become a gas chamber, Mr. Vasdev. And you know, of course, the onus and the accountability starts from the governments and the politicians, but I'm not going to stop there just with the politicians. A large part of the problem for me is also the government machinery, the bureaucracy, the number of commissions and panels and boards and committees that have been set up who've done nothing.
Just 1 minute. The sanctioning of funds, the sanctioning of equipment is done on the basis of bills or money orders or what I call the money bills passed in the respective legislatures. Money comes through that source. The bureaucrats specialize in not utilizing or utilizing it. So you got to take action.
Yeah.
Which bureaucrat have you punished for not taking in the pollution matter? Which forest officer have you punished for not controlling the deforestations?
Correct.
We have dropped the national forest from 32% to less than 20%. But we said the green cover has increased to 24%. By planting grass and declaring parks to be forests, you don't create a forest. This is what we are doing. We are, if I may use the word, conning ourselves in believing what we are doing.
So you're absolutely right. Now, let me go back to the politicians and Aadil, to you first. What I don't understand that most of the political class, the powerful, the influential, even the rich, are settled in the national capital. how is it that in a place where the decision makers and their families live, we are still not able to resolve this problem? And how casual are we about it, that we don't even care when it comes to our own people and our families? We are seeing it every day.
Tanvi, may I just come in for a minute?
Mr. Vasde, let me just get Aadil to respond to this. I'll come back.
Before the politicians respond, I want to ask a question. Since 2007, the Supreme Court has been issuing directions in various cases, including MC Mehta. How many of them have you carried out? 2007, we are 14 years down the track. We completed a full era, a decade and a half. What have you done?
Aadil, let's start with you and then we'll go to the other two.
Well, Tanvi, I think it's unfair to single out politicians. We are breathing the same air. The politicians, the members of parliament, the ministers, the chief ministers who come to Delhi are breathing the same air.
Correct.
So therefore, please let's not compartmentalize this. This is an issue where all of us need to work head on, jointly, together. I think there are no two ways about it. And I understand Mr. Vasudev, his concern, his despair at the state of affairs. We are all in the same boat. Having said this, please understand, we are sitting in Delhi. It is the central government which has vast resources at its disposal. The Delhi government which controls PWD, which controls other departments and instrumentalities. So therefore, the proper forum or the proper designated authority to deal with this is certainly the Delhi government and the central government. Construction dust contributes to about 25 to 30%. How does MCD, how does PWD intend to deal with it? We need a blueprint. Number two, when you talk about stubble burning, let's take this issue of stubble burning. What is the government of India doing to alleviate the misery of the farmers? It is not that farmers voluntarily do this. Politics. They are in a hand-to-mouth situation. It is important that the central government, which has the resources at its disposal, should give them subsidies so that that switchover can be made towards more effective and eco-friendly ways of stubble disposal management. You know, it is important to first diagnose the problem, which I think all of us have fairly diagnosed it. Thereafter, we need to put our resources to address the problem. Unfortunately, the BJP, the Aam Aadmi Party, is busy with PR. If we believe what the BJP spokesperson was saying, then arguably our air should have been better than Hawaii. Unfortunately, it's not. So therefore, certainly there are problems. What are we doing? Are we putting our resources towards addressing it? Are we putting our resources towards dealing with the problem of vehicular traffic? Are we making that switch towards better biofuel? So these are issues which the central government must take the lead. The states will work in tandem. Let me assure you on behalf of the Congress party that we want a durable solution to this problem. All of us are breathing this PM 2.5.
Okay, so let me, you are making some valid points and I'll get the BJP to respond in just a bit. But just let me ask you this question. For everything, the center has to take the lead and the states will then do whatever, follow the center? Because as far as I see it, the states had a biggest issue to say, oh, agriculture is a state subject. Agriculture and farming is a state subject. Why is the center creating laws? But when it comes to actually giving alternatives, investing money, providing the financing or the subsidies to the farmers to get rid of the stubbles, this very same state in the party, Aadil, turns around and says the center isn't giving us funds.
That's an unfair.
How is it unfair? It's very convenient to say sometimes it's state subject and sometimes it's center's responsibility.
I've understood your question, Kirti. Please, Tanvi, please understand the states have a certain degree of fiscal space. It is the center which needs to chip in, where the states unfortunately do not have that kind of financial capability or caliber to really address these issues. When you talk about subsidy for farmers, though, stubble burning is not the major cause of pollution in Delhi. I think it is scientifically demonstrated by the central government and a host of other studies that it is vehicular traffic and industrial pollution. But having said this, the states do not have the resources. It's not just Punjab, but even Haryana, even Rajasthan, even Uttar Pradesh. The state's budgetary capacity is not sufficient to address this. That is why the center has a budget of over 30 lakh crore rupees. That is where the center needs to step in. Please understand, we are a federal setup where fiscal space or fiscal capability capability of the centre is much more in comparison to the states. So therefore, most certainly the central government must take the lead.
I disagree with you. I think that's just really bad economics on behalf of the states, because for almost everything, when the states are asked, the answer can't be, we don't have the fiscal space, we don't have the money, the centre should give it. You all find the money when you want to give other subsidies to people. If you want to cut their power tariffs, you will do that. If you want to give them free water, you will do that. If you want to give them other subsidies, you will. But this subsidy doesn't help the farmers directly. It's for the greater good of the of our environment and the people who are perhaps in another state. So it's okay. Let's not bother. It's the same thing that the BJP is doing, right? You've taken back the farm laws. You've decriminalized stubble burning, because these are the things that will get you the votes of farmers and all of their family members. What will not get you the vote is providing them an alternative to this, because they don't care.
Let's analyze it. Let's analyze it slightly scientifically. Firstly, stubble burning is not the major cause. I say this at the cost of repetition. However, if we have to make the farmers switch over to more eco-friendly ways of stubble management, the answer is to subsidize this equipment, give them a direct transfer so that they're able to make that shift. The farmers have a hand-to-mouth existence. There is inflation. The cost of diesel has manifoldly increased. They do not have the resources,
No, you're right. You're right. And nobody is blaming them. I'm not saying they don't have the resources.
Let there be a direct cash transfer so that we incentivize the farmers.
Okay, we're going to come back to this in just a bit. But we're going to come back to this in just a bit. I want to quickly...
Part of the problem is vehicular emission and industrial
Yes,
pollution.
so let's get back to vehicular emission and industrial pollution. And very quickly, Karthik, to you on that point. What should be those two things that we can go back to the courts tomorrow with? Obviously, it can't be overnight solutions, but things that can be looked at by these states.
Yeah, so I think what the government can, the court can certainly demand from the various states that are joining the NCR region, is to present a list of what are the industrial and point source emission facilities that actually exist throughout this this airshed that we occupy. What is the state of monitoring, and what is the state of actual emissions coming out of these plants and facilities? Right, you will find that many of them are well beyond the standards that have been set for them, and the courts must ask, why is it that you do not have the system to actually fix these throughout the year, right? And why is it that when I'm actually doing an audit of this, on a given day, that I'm finding that half, if not most of these facilities are non-compliant, right? This could range from your, Eat Bhattis, which is basically your, brick kilns, through to your biggest industries that abound from Punjab to, West Bengal, right? Of course, we can delineate the space. That is one. And I think the court must basically bring all these states to account and say, what have we done about it? And in terms of vehicles, right, again, this is not just, pollution that's just necessarily emanating only from, vehicles that are within NCT, right? You've got vehicular traffic, vehicles that are older than 10 years, diesel, they basically go over to Punjab and Haryana because they're not able to register themselves here. So it's not like, it's just vehicles that are in the national capital alone. There are, of course, vehicles elsewhere. So understanding what is the use of vehicles, right, private vehicles, and the the quality of the pollution under check scheme, which needs to be overhauled completely, right? And the Supreme Court needs to take cognizance of the fact that we have to have better mechanisms to enforce vehicular maintenance, and that will require an overhaul technologically, right, in the way we monitor vehicular movement. And the court needs to ask the states to present a plan, right, and not ask for action in 24, 36, 48 hours, right, and showcase where are these industries. I think tomorrow, if they can actually ask them that, and if the states can come back with a clear response saying this is what it is, it'll open the eyes of everyone to the amount of pollution that abounds this particular region, right? And finally, I think one of the things we've missed out is with the temperatures dipping as they are, right? We have a huge bit of vulnerable population, which is the homeless, and the people who basically don't have any way to warm themselves, right? People are doing business in the open, commercial facilities. They're having to basically resort to burning biomass, waste, anything that they get to actually keep themselves warm. And unfortunately, we are in a country where there's no centralized heating, right? Colleagues of mine who've studied overseas, are able to sort of live in those conditions, but suddenly find Delhi very cold. Clearly because, we don't have heated spaces within, right? So how do you address that? That's a big elephant in the room, right? And unfortunately, there is no clear technical solution, but this is going to be an annual affair. And you will find that throughout the region, there is going to be increased heating load from burning whatever you can get, and biomass being a big component of it. And this needs to be thought of, in a way that there is innovation in this. I'm not able to propose something here because, everything that has been proposed, has not really worked, or it's very expensive to put out. So I'm not suggesting that we can't solve for, but we must put together the process to have those solutions at least eked out, and so that we have a sense of what is it going to cost us to actually get people to be warm and comfortable in whatever settings they're in without, polluting the environment excessively. Yeah.
I like the point that you made about, there have been many proposals. Most of them have been tried, not worked out, or have been expensive. And that's actually not just for this aspect. For several other aspects, hundreds of crores of funds allocated, implemented. But I think we're looking at it from the wrong way or wrong point of view. Some of these solutions can work, but first you have to attack or target the source of it and bring down some part of that. And then you can say, okay, how do you, control the dust? How do you bring in some smog towers to give some immediate relief? Or how do you control vehicular movement for a few of these months or weeks? All of these are ad hoc methods that can come later, but initially, industrial pollution, vehicular pollution, stubble burning, three of the big aspects that contribute to the pollution have to be looked at, and you don't do that. Then all of these other methods are not going to work. This was one aspect of it. Thanks, Karthik, for joining us. Everybody else continues. I want to go to a second aspect where also the court got extremely angry. And that is about the policy at the state level that's being carried out as far as the schools is concerned. Mr. Kailash Vasde, I want to come back to you on this, because what happened in court today, the government is deciding basis the pollution movement up or down. Today, they were pulled up for reopening the schools when people are working from home in this polluted atmosphere and shutting down schools again. That has led to much debate about whether the court should actually get to such details every single time and pass instructions. What do you think?
There's an aspect. I just wanted to start with an opening where I was wanting to come in. All the discussions which have taken place within the political parties, the center and the state, says that if you give us money, we'll get rid of pollution. Now, if money was to get rid of pollution, it is an illogical answer. Now, let's come to the second part about schools. Insofar as schools are concerned, even 3 years ago, schools were shut down because of pollution in Delhi. Then we came to a situation of using with alternate numbers, odd and even system. When these kind of things happen, it is a clear indication to you that pollution is got to be the top priority of all governments. School education has to be the priority of the children, and education has to be given to children without having politics to come into the play from election to election. Please see what is happening today. Children have been home for 2 years. You've killed the best years of their life. COVID did it. Now we are doing it deliberately through pollution. Insofar as working from home is concerned, working from home was because of COVID, not because of pollution. If pollution is now being used as a handle, it is an incorrect way to deal with the situation, because COVID will come up, then we will see it will go to get worse. Everybody is working all over the world, notwithstanding the situation. But question is, can we not do anything to make sure children go to school? You can. You can make sure that the school compounds, the school areas are kept clean, pollution in the city is controlled. Let these children have a life of children. Let them not have a life which is crippled by adults who don't know what they are doing. This is the sad commentary.
It's an extremely sad commentary, and they are having to bear the brunt of it because the adults can't take decisions and implement those decisions which are for the future of their own children. And that's where we're stuck right now. Anuja wants to make a point. Let me also, as I go across to Anuja Kapur, let me also say good evening to Aparajita Gautam, President of the Delhi Parents Association. But first to Anuja. Yeah.
Tanvi, because, when you just jumped on the second point, if you allow me, let me give you a bit on the first, where you were talking about pollution, and this second comes automatically linked with it. See, what needs to be done also, as you very clearly and very rightly said, that center provides money. They do. And everybody knows, you can see it in Delhi also. We have been doing this, and we are being giving not only for, for Ganga, we have given for Yamuna, and then we have also given for 11,000 buses, which have been promised in 2015 till 2020 by Arvind Kejriwal. Have you seen any, even you know that Supreme Court have asked this, where are the 1,000 buses, right? Now, what we're talking about, there are no electric buses, and he also said that he will convert the engines, he will be doing it. Now, what first clearly, if I keep, my BJP thing on the side and I become a social activist, and I tell you on this, first thing which we really need to say is, in that particular state, first is the deforestation. That should not be done. So any kind of, trees and plants, that should not be taken away. So one thing which actually is the most important is when you erode trees, because they are the ones which give you oxygen. If you erode them, this is going to be a lot of menace. Second is lot of, these public transports need to be taken. Stop odd and even. If you do odd and even, this will not help you. We need more of buses. Metros need to come up clean and should be more of usable. Let, even I would say that, yes, we politicians should also travel more in this buses and in these metros. And we have been doing it. I have been doing it, and there are many times Modi ji has been doing it. So there should not be a shame, and in a game can be done. Third thing which I want to say is, we were talking about 10 to 15 years of cars have already been, stopped in Delhi. Very correctly, they say that it is gone outside Delhi. But what happens is this when it goes outside Delhi, the things also needs to be scrapped. So what happens is, because they do not get registered outside Delhi, so this gets scrapped. So we have also trying to put this thing in place that they should get scrapped and should not be registered. So this is another factor. Yeah. One more thing which was really painful when they said that about the rat pickers who are sleeping on the road and they burn. So what is it that Mohalla Clinic has been doing? Use it. Use Mohalla Clinic in Delhi, Ran Basera. Where is it? Use that. Yeah. Rather than helping them into
providing night shelters needs to be looked at as a comprehensive policy. There are some, but obviously not enough in our cities, whether it's the national capital or anywhere else. But cities which are dealing with pollution also need to look at these aspects. I think everybody gets caught up in the larger of the problems that you forget to look at some of these other contributors as well. But not just because it's a contributor to pollution, also for the health and safety of these people in the very, very cold winter season. Nitin Tyagi, quick response from you, and then I go to the other two ladies. Yeah.
Definitely. First of all, let me tell you, the bus fleet has gone from 5,000 to 7,000, and I'm sure it will add more. We'll add more than 1,000 buses in the next year, in the next calendar year. One. Secondly, I want to tell you, we have enough night shelters, and we'll be working on them, because as winter comes, it becomes more severe. We need more and more night shelters, and I think Delhi has enough night shelters. And it's not because of the unavailability of night shelters. It is because of the choice of the people who do not want to go into the night shelters. There's a lot of people who do not go in there, and Mohalla clinics are there to treat, and they are treating people. Now, let me just talk about, in a neutral manner, the problem which I feel the major issue with Delhi or the NCR is, for 200 kilometers north, south, east, west, we do not have good forest areas. But down south, we have like 200 kilometers from Delhi, we have Sariska, and up north, we have Rajaji National Park, and nothing in between. And I think this is one of the major reasons why we have so much of dust, because so much of construction has gone in all these places. Starting from Delhi to around 200 kilometers north and south and east and west, everywhere, deforestation in Aravalis, the cutting of Aravalis, and a lot of such things have happened. Another thing I want to point out, I have seen and I have experienced, and I am sure you also going to agree, the kind of compliance of PUC, pollution under control of vehicles, that we have in Delhi, we do not see it happening in UP. And Anuja ji, I'm sure you're representing center right now, but you should genuinely talk to people in UP to make it a bit more compliant. I have seen 100 rupees deke, 100 rupees you give and you get a pollution under control certificate in UP. And this is something that should not happen. It is extremely irresponsible of the government that, I mean, we should have hefty fines. If we
Permit
all
them
are...
speak. No. I was not politicizing it, but you are doing it. Please speak on facts. We are already been doing it. Tyagi ji, we are also doing it. So no, मैं भी आपको request कर रही हूँ.
So
please.
Okay. May I request both of you now, if you can just quickly move on to the other big aspect, which is what is the decision. Nitin, let's talk about your decision to reopen schools. And the Supreme Court was not very happy with when government employees have the option of working from home. Why are we asking students to go to schools?
I understand and I completely agree. It can be extremely traumatic for a lot of students with health issues and even otherwise going to school. I'm also a father of two daughters, and in fact, one of them has boards, so she has to go. But having said that, yes, children they are experiencing a lot of fatigue, not going there, not going to school, not being able to interact with a lot of other children. And I think government has made this decision looking into the aspect that children need to go to school, and it is these are very precious years of their growing age, and probably this is why the decision was taken. And if now the government, now the court has stepped in, I think an appropriate decision would be taken by the government. Or it has already been taken, I think.
Yeah, but the argument given was, we're not making it mandatory any which ways. If they choose to come, they can.
Absolutely.
Or they can study.
There are a lot of parents are divided on the.
I'm sure they are. Let's in fact get some of the voices linked to this as well. Aparajita Gautam, President of the Delhi Parents Association. Aparajita, I'm sure there is a division. Some parents may say that they've already lost out so much. They need to go to school. They need to see their teachers or even their classmates for some time, and this pollution is essentially a season-long problem anyways. Where do you stand on this debate?
देखिए, जहां तक पेरेंट्स की बात है और स्कूल खोलने और बंद करने की बात है, यहाँ पर एक चीज मैं क्लियर कर देती हूँ. कुछ पेरेंट्स हैं जो चाहते हैं स्कूल खोले, उसके पीछे रीजन है. जो रीजन है, डिजिटल डिवाइड हो सकता है, पेरेंट्स वर्किंग हो सकते हैं, हो सकता है प्राइवेट सेक्टर में काम करते हो, बहुत सारे ऐसे रीजन है जहाँ पे वो पेरेंट्स चाहते हैं बच्चा स्कूल में जाए, पढ़े. एग्री. बट मोस्टली जो पेरेंट्स हैं इसके खिलाफ है. और ये जब स्कूल रीओपन की बात हुई थी, हमने तब भी कहा था इट इज टू अर्ली टू डिक्लेयर कि आप स्कूल रीओपन का जो आप डिसीजन लेकर आ रहे हैं. व्हाई? इसके पीछे ये रीजन था कि अब जब सुप्रीम कोर्ट में केस चल रहा है, दूसरी बात आप देख रहे हैं पॉल्यूशन लेवल कम नहीं हुआ, अचानक से एक दिन डिप हो गया, अगले दिन डिसाइड कर लिया कि स्कूल को रीओपन कर देते, जबकि सबको दिख रहा है कि पॉल्यूशन जो है वो कम नहीं होगा. दूसरी, मैं आप लोगों के चैनल के माध्यम से पूछना चाहूंगी यहाँ पर कि अब आप ये देखिए, बच्चों का माइंडसेट कोई समझने की कोशिश नहीं कर रहा. इतने टाइम कोविड की वजह से वेस्ट हुआ. जो प्रीशियस टाइम, जब यहाँ पर हम लोग सारे इस वर्ड को यूज कर रहे हैं, जो प्रीशियस टाइम था, 1-2 महीना बच्चे पढ़ सकते थे स्कूल में जाके. अगर गवर्नमेंट की प्री प्लानिंग होती, ऐसा नहीं है कि अचानक से आज पोल्यूशन आ रहा है, एकदम ही प्राकृतिक आपदा आ गई है, ऐसा नहीं है. पॉल्यूशन इस टाइम पे अक्टूबर नवंबर में आके दिल्ली को हिट करता है. अगर गवर्नमेंट ने पहले से ही प्री प्लानिंग की होती, पूरे साल भर काम किया होता, जबकि सारा कुछ बंद था, मैं छोटी से कह सकती हूँ इतना बुरी तरीके से अभी दिल्ली हिट नहीं हो रही होती. अब आप देखिए, स्कूल कोविड की वजह से बंद थे, आज पॉल्यूशन की वजह से बंद है, और अभी हम सब लोग देख रहे हैं ओमिक्रॉन आ रहा है, वो ऑलरेडी हमारे यहाँ पे केसेस पकड़े गए, फिर दोबारा से कोविड की वजह से बंद हो जाएगा. ना यू टेल मी एज ए पेरेंट, हम क्या करें? हम बच्चों को स्कूल भेजना चाहते हैं बट भेज नहीं सकते. क्यों? आज पॉल्यूशन हिट कर रहा है, कल कोविड हिट करेगा. हम अपने बच्चों को घर में बैठा के हम क्या कर पाएंगे? जब हम कहते हैं हम स्कूल नहीं भेजना चाहते, तो दिल्ली सरकार कहती है आपको भेजना जरूरी है, प्राइवेट स्कूल्स वाले कहते हैं भेजना जरूरी है, और आज पेरेंट को मजबूरी है बच्चे को भेजना. उसके पीछे मैं आपको बता देती हूँ, वेदर दिल्ली गवर्नमेंट कोई भी ऑर्डर निकाले, उसमें लिखा होता है कि पेरेंट का कंसेंट चाहिए, SOP फॉलो होनी चाहिए, सारी चीजें लिखी होती हैं, और ये भी लिखा होता है फॉलो नहीं करेंगे तो विल टेक एक्शन. आप मुझे 1.5 साल 2 साल में बता दीजिए कितने स्कूल्स पे एक्शन लिया गया है जिन्होंने कोविड प्रोटोकॉल्स को फॉलो नहीं किया. आज कैमरा उठाकर किसी भी स्कूल के सामने चले जाइए, आपको बच्चे बाहर, स्कूल के अंदर विदाउट मास्क में नजर आएंगे. लेट मी ऐड वन मोर थिंग. लास्ट में 10th और 12th के बोर्ड एग्जाम्स चल रहे हैं टर्म के. अब आप मुझे बताइए, 10th और 12th के बच्चों के पास कुछ स्पेशल इम्यूनिटी है जो आपके इस कोविड में भी और इस पॉल्यूशन में भी वो स्कूल जाएंगे, उनको कुछ नहीं होगा? हम बाकी बच्चों के लिए स्कूल बंद करें, 10th और 12th के बच्चों के पास अगर स्पेशल इम्यूनिटी पावर है। तो मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जितने भी रिसर्च इंस्टीट्यूट्स हैं उनको ये स्टडी करना चाहिए 10th और 12th के बच्चों पे
वहाँ पे perhaps it's also Aparajita Gautam inevitable because they have already suffered. Class 12 students has already gone through tough times in 11th and 12th. Class 10 students would already be under so much pressure, and there is no choice there. For rest of the classes, you still have a choice to say, okay, let's find a solution where your health can be also kept in mind. I see Dr. Jyoti Gupta smiling on that, but let's also bring in a viewpoint of Dr. Jyoti Gupta, Director Principal for DPS Cyberbad, and K.R. Mangalam joining me right now. Is it a good idea to ask children to come to school at this point in Delhi?
So, having heard everybody, I think everybody is divided on this opinion. Even when Aparajita ji was talking, I think there is a lot of conflict in the mind of the parents as well, and in the minds of the students. On one side, we want the children to come to school because there's a lot of learning loss, and we all understand that they've been home since almost 2 years, and the loss that they are suffering right now, whatever you may say, however you may plan, is not going to be abridged easily, or it is not going to be abridged soon. Very clearly stated that there is very little choice for the students of 10th and 12th because the boards have been mandated. Now, what happens? Last year, when CBSE did not conduct any examinations throughout the year, we were having debates at the end that was CBSE sleeping? Why did they not take any action in between when the cases weren't too many? This year, when they have taken action and they are taking exams, we are debating here whether the children have the immunity or they should be giving the exams or not. Now, if the third wave is to come and we are talking about the new variant coming and we are talking about the timelines, then whether we will be able to have the second round of examinations or not, one really doesn't know. Now, if you have to choose between the pollution and you have to choose between the COVID, I think it is better to get the exams done now rather than again postpone the exams by not having the children inside the schools. Yes, for the other classes, there is still a chance where they can study online, they can come to school a little later. But let me tell you, if we are talking about the children staying at home or we are talking about the children coming to the school, if they are indoors, how does it matter whether they are sitting in the room of their house or they are sitting in the room of a school? There are many schools which have already installed the purifiers. There are many schools which are also taking up the indigenous way of purifying the air by putting the lime solutions so that the air becomes a little better there. So what do we have a choice for? Do we have a choice for examinations now or examinations later? I think at this point of time, when the schools had reopened and there was a chance for everybody to come to school and study, maybe the timings could be flexible. Instead of calling the children in the fog and early in the morning at 8 o'clock or 8:30, we could have schools from 10 a.m. onwards. We could have alternate classes coming to the school. But again and again, shutting down the schools is creating a lot of problem for the schools and the teachers as well. On one day, we make a timetable for the children to come to school. We float the Google Forms. We organize the transport. We organize the buses. There is so much of expenditure that is done into all these things. There's so much of planning that goes into the teachers. All of us are working day in, day out to plan. And then finally, again, it is that the schools are shut. And,
you raised a very important point.
The decisions, one last thing. Unfortunately, the decisions of reopening the schools are not in the hands of the schools, are not in the hands of the educationists. It is someone else who's taking these decisions. And then later on, who is at the brunt of all this? The poor children. I have seen the children suffering. They are not getting admissions in classes in higher education. They are not getting courses. They are not getting colleges. There are so many children who've taken a break year this year. So what about all these children? Who is going to talk about all of them? Who's going to take into cognizance the learning loss? Are these children going to become the doctors? Are they the engineers of tomorrow? Are our lives going to be in their hands? There are larger questions to be answered. I'm sorry to say we can't politicize the entire matter right now, but all of us have to sit down together and find solutions to this. We can't be closing down the schools at every at every problem.
And if it was a regular year where pollution was our biggest problem, then perhaps to say that for these 10 days, let's just shut down schools additionally, such that children don't have to really bear the brunt of it. But these aren't regular times. These are times where you're already seeing a lot of uncertainty and schools repeatedly shutting down because of COVID. And now we don't know what's coming next in the next 3 months or 6 months as well. So, Aparajita, do you agree with what Dr. Jyoti also here is saying, that between the two devils, if you had to choose, you would rather have the exams and essential classes getting done now than later when maybe another wave hits us?
We are not denying. हमने पहले ही बोला है, हम चाहते हैं बच्चा स्कूल जाए, बट whose responsibility? आप कोविड के प्रोटोकॉल्स फॉलो नहीं कर रहे हैं. अभी आप ज्योति गुप्ता मैम का दिखा रहे थे, शी इज ऑल्सो मेंबर ऑफ इन CBSE. मैं इनसे ये जानना चाहूंगी, जो स्कूल्स कोविड प्रोटोकॉल्स का वॉयलेशन कर रहे हैं, क्या CBSE उन पे एक्शन लेगी? और यहाँ पे आप आम आदमी पार्टी के भी यहाँ पर बैठे हुए, क्या दिल्ली सरकार उन स्कूल्स पे एक्शन लेगी? आपको मैं कल ही क्या मैं अभी आपके साथ दिल्ली का गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में शेयर करती हूँ, बच्चे वहां की पिक्चर्स शेयर कर रहे, वहां देखिए कितनी भीड़ लगी हुई है. हमारा जो टेंशन है वो इन सब चीजों को देख के ये है कि कोविड प्रोटोकॉल्स फॉलो नहीं किए जा रहे हैं, इन स्कूल्स पे एक्शन नहीं लिया जा रहा है.
आप जो कह रही हैं अपराजिता, as I am sure as a concerned parent it's understandable, but let me ask you this, honestly बोलिए मुझे कि बच्चे कहाँ पे कोविड प्रोटोकॉल फॉलो करते हैं? जब शाम को पार्क में जाते हैं तो कितने पेरेंट्स उनके पीछे पीछे भाग रहे होते हैं कि मास्क लगा के घूमो. जब आप उनके साथ फेस्टिवल्स में जाते हैं, फैमिली गैदरिंग्स में जाते हैं, शादियों में जाते हैं, मॉल्स में जाते हैं, रेस्टोरेंट में जाते हैं, तब कितने बच्चे फॉलो कर रहे हैं ये प्रोटोकॉल? ये वाले जो एक्सपेक्ट कर रही हैं कि टीचर्स उनको डांट के सिखाएं?
नहीं, मैं ये नहीं कह रही. देखिए, ये वाले जो आपने जितने भी बताए ना, ये हर डिबेट में आते हैं, बट आप ये बताइए, क्या बच्चे रोज शादियों में जाते हैं? क्या
रोज खेलने तो बाहर जाते ही है बाहर? मैंने तो पूरे पैंडेमिक में देखे बच्चे रोज बाहर खेलने जा रहे हैं.
वो जब भी होते हैं वो पेरेंट्स की निगरानी में होते हैं, वहां अगर बच्चा इन्फेक्ट होता है पेरेंट्स की रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. बट आप स्कूल्स की अगर हम बात करते, देखिए जब हमारी DDMA की भी मीटिंग हुई, उसमें भी वहां पे प्रोटोकॉल्स की बात हुई. आप इस बात में इसमें जाइए कि जब हम बात करते हैं रूल्स की, कोविड प्रोटोकॉल्स की, तो वहां पर गार्जियन की जगह, पेरेंट्स की जगह कौन वहां पे गार्जियन है? वो स्कूल अथॉरिटी है. हमारे यहाँ पर ये कहना
You're right. But that's the point I'm trying to make. Parents get anxious when things are not under their control. But do keep in mind, even when आप निगरानी रख रहे हैं, ये बहुत बार होता है. बच्चों को beyond a point बोलना बहुत मुश्किल है कि 24 घंटे मास्क पहन के घूमो अगर बाहर जा रहे हैं. ये स्कूल्स की और टीचर्स की है रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. बट अगर CBSE उन पे एक्शन लेने लगी तो कल को वैसे भी स्कूल बंद हो जाएगा, और हो ही क्या सकता है, तो वो अलग प्रॉब्लम. I am completely out of time. I'm going to thank all of my panelists for joining us. There are no easy answers to these questions, especially in times of a pandemic. These are unprecedented times. But do we really want to add to the problems for our children? Do we really want to add to the problems for their health? Both the COVID and the pandemic, the pollution do that. And do we really want to add to the uncertainty for their schools? Whatever be the decisions, there needs to be much clarity, exhaustive conversations, and then a clear decision that is taken by the governments over what they want to do. Opening, reopening, shutting, opening again, postponing exams, shifting the dates, all of this is just going to add further stress for the children in our country. And of course, if we genuinely care, we need to start acting and curbing the pollution. We need to, as ourselves, become responsible citizens who do our own bit to curb pollution and then demand the same from our governments. Make it an election issue and see how things start changing. Thank you for joining us.